Would you offer prayer for us, please?
Our Father in heaven, as we gather as members of Cardston Town Council, we ask Thy Spirit may be with us and may make wise decisions for our citizens. We're thankful for all that is provided for us, and we're thankful to live in this beautiful little town. We say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. All right. We have Councillor. We have Bill Creek coming. I was thinking they are getting a little bit mixed up for the Temple News, and we have Troy McCarthy for Channel 32 today, and we're going to start our council meeting this 13th day of February. And to all of you, tomorrow, happy Valentine's into your better halves. Treat them well. We have you a special, Councillor, you know what I mean, do something special. We have addition and adoption of agenda today. Councillor?
I have some additions. We were
Okay,
talking a couple of weeks ago about per diems for different things that we attend. I've got some information about some conferences and some extra meetings that I'm attending and assignments that I was given as a result.
Okay.
So
we'll put it on the 7G.
That's fine.
Per diems. We have an addition from Councillor Brown.
I would like to add under going in camera. I have.
Oh, you want it?
Yes, please.
Would you be okay, Council, to put something extra in camera? We don't have any background.
Yep.
Okay.
It's, what would be the point you would put it
Legal.
under? Legal? Okay. So, I'm so sorry, your FG is F, 7F. Councillor Brown.
Here.
Yes.
Didn't see anything on here in the camera for names, confidential items for names.
I've got it.
Okay, so it's not on here.
It'll go under 12A. There's committee members.
Oh,
Yeah,
All
I
right.
got them for you.
So are we good with those two changes? All in favor?
Well,
We need a motion to...
You have one.
push.
I'll make a
I'm
motion
sorry?
to
I gave you a sheet with an addition. You haven't talked about it.
Yeah, you're correct. So under 12C, which is in camera,
You already used that for
there
Councillor
will
Brown's
be
item.
12D. Oh, we're confused today, am I not?
12D.
Yeah, there will be black sand contract, the FOIP section 16(1)(c)(I). Under 7F,
So
there
it's
is
just G now.
7F for Jeff, and is for us 7G.
Mine's
would
7F,
have-
isn't it?
Yeah.
Yours is 7. So 7G will be Chinook Foundation letter, an invitation for an opening of the building. And here is one before we go on the 8, the financial report. It has been a tradition in council to approve those financial reports. But if you follow the letter of the law from the MGA, financial reports are there presented for information and require a motion of approval. So we will start to implement that today. Okay?
Just a review of finance.
It's a review, it does not need approval. Those were all traditions, but it doesn't fit the MGA. All right. So here are the changes.
I'll make a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Hopefully you will help me to stay straight with the additions. No delegation. There are some minutes there. There are two sets of minutes. One for a regular meeting and one that was for the in-camera. That's what I have in my...
I don't have the second set of minutes.
I have it.
What would the second set of minutes be?
The in-camera one?
It shows, well, it's a prolongation of the first meeting, so sorry. Oh, it's just the way it's formatted. Okay, good. So it's one set a minute from the 23rd. We did go in camera, we came out of camera, but it's one set a minute, only the organizational.
There was a question about one of the motions on there.
Yeah.
Last time. Motion 2018-34. Council directs administration to set up a meeting between myself and
Yes.
Deb and Chief
Yes.
Administrative Officer. And so the meeting was held, but it said that determine which stakeholders would be involved in discussions regarding the proposed trade quarter and bring the results before council at the next council committee of the whole. I don't remember having a discussion on that. And it's not reflected in the minutes of the council committee of the whole.
Yeah, it wasn't there, because we don't have it formalized yet.
So,
Does that represent the intent?
Yeah,
Does the
we-
motion represent the intent?
I get that, but
Because if it represents the intent, that's all what is required.
I get that.
No.
What I'm trying to say is that there was no discussion, period, and it would have been nice to have had some discussion at the council committee of the whole. So,
Could you put that on the agenda for next CCW?
Councillor, is that possible that the reason the discussion with us was because we didn't have enough background to get together, yes, in order to make a meaningful discussion? Is that possible, that's the reason?
no, I don't think so. I think we had a meaningful enough discussion in our meeting to put something forward for us to discuss. So,
We said we were going to contact the MLA.
well, actually, we came up with a number of people that we were going to contact in our meeting.
So,
So, I guess that's a question I'm just asking, Jeff, if
Sure.
there was too much stuff going on, or what?
Yeah, partly that. We didn't formalize the notes from that meeting, probably in time for the CCW. I'll be honest with that, there's just a lot of stuff going on.
Okay.
So what I would hope, well, Alex and I have met on it a couple of times. There's still some ambiguity on a few things, so what I'm hoping is we get these names tonight and we can get the plan formalized a little better in the next week.
Because, just to lay it out there, and that's, the clock is ticking, and so we kind of need to get moving on some of this stuff yesterday.
okay.
So, maybe another question for you, Jeff, is that we put a lot of stuff on your plate in the last 3 months. Do you have enough people to assist you with that? Because there's a lot of stuff there.
Yeah,
And there's a
there
lot of
is.
meaty stuff there.
Yeah, so I think some things will start taking a life of their own here pretty soon. I can't be involved in everything on that list until it gets to other people.
Right.
This is one of those things that I've got to segue out of it because there's just too many things. But I think on this one we're close to it getting its legs.
Okay.
And I apologize I didn't get on the agenda as quickly as you would have preferred, I get that. But it will take just a little bit of time.
Well,
Can-
okay, I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'm just going to ask you straight up. Would it behoove us to possibly hire a college or university student on a part-time basis to give you a little boost in the office with
So
some?
we've got a staff coming back in April.
Yeah, I do have somebody coming back here in 60 days, which will help because it frees up Angel for some things. So that'll be really good.
Council, I don't want to stop the conversation, but at this point, we need to really put things in order. The adoption of the minute is to adopt the intent of the minute. If the intent of the minute is good, we approve the minute. If we want to do further discussion, do you want to add it somewhere in the agenda?
Where that, items should, I think, go in camera.
We can talk about staffing levels.
Okay.
No, it doesn't
Sure.
need to do
But I
that.
think we're gonna get there is a short answer.
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
gonna, we are short one,
Okay.
and that's coming around though.
But
And I
thank you
guess-
for that.
I guess what I would ask too, Jeff, is would you like myself just to grab the ball and run with this? I mean, I don't want, what I'm trying not to do is to step on
I know.
administration's
Yeah,
toes.
I appreciate that. Give me about 3 days,
Okay.
and we'll have some things formalized where that group, you and that group is gonna be able to go, pretty independent of me,
Perfect.
okay?
Thank you.
All right,
All right.
Answer my
thanks.
question.
Okay.
Thank you.
So essentially, I totally appreciate that, but just from a governance perspective, let's keep the minutes as approved for their intent, and then let's add what we want as follow-up to the minutes as a separate item of business. It'll be more appropriate. So, do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from January 23rd of 2013.
Thank you.
17.
No,
No,
it's
18.
18.
It says 17 on
Does
there.
it?
Yeah.
Mine
There we
says-
Yeah.
mine says
That was-
23rd.
So, sorry, I make a motion to accept, approve January 23rd, 2018 minutes.
Okay, all in favor? Thank you very much.
Where's the date?
Okay. Councillor Selk, do you want more discussion regarding that item?
Until we have the framework of what we talked about with Jeff and Alex and myself, I think it's pointless at this point in time.
Okay, so are we okay to put it on the next
Council.
council of the whole? No, council meeting we can have,
That's
yes.
2 weeks from now.
So next council meeting, would that be all right? Okay.
Let's see, do I have a choice?
Well, you do have a choice to put it now or postpone it further, so it's, what I'm asking you is how soon do you want?
When the time is ticking. Let's do it next week.
Okay, that's the wrong question to ask me here, because I wanted it last week.
I know, but be reasonable then.
Well, then.
27th.
The 25th it is.
Thank you, Councillor Selk. You're in good mood today.
Yeah, it's been cold.
It's Valentine's Day.
So that really does trigger you, doesn't it? Okay, item 6, bylaw and policy. So we have a bylaw 1643, public safety bylaw. We did first reading, all what we need to do. If you are satisfied with the way it is written, we can consider second and third reading.
So there are no significant
There was no
additions,
change made.
changes to
Absolutely
that?
not.
Then I'll move second reading of bylaw 1643,
Public safety
public
bylaw.
safety bylaw.
Thank you.
Question on
Yeah.
Do we have questions from that? Do you have a question, Councillor
Yes.
Bengry?
Have we, Jeff, is there any reason that we should put this through our legal?
It went really good.
We got a opinion from Tori Lewis Abels on this a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
And it stands good?
Well,
It stands to be challenged.
we've had some discussion on this. We
Yes.
anticipate some challenge, and we're going to win some, we're going to lose some until we figure out where this is going to fall out.
It
So
is
is
in
it bulletproof
fact,
right now? Nope, it's probably not.
it is in fact a way for the court to give us a sense of where we can go with that bylaw. And unless we test it, we will never know. Okay?
I do have just, the city of Calgary just put through a panhandling bylaw. They updated it in 2015, and one thing that I really liked when I was reading it, it actually had that people aren't allowed, panhandlers are not allowed within 10 meters of an entrance to a bank, an automated teller machine, a transit stop, pedestrian walkway, A pedestrian's walkway include plus 15. Anyway, it goes on to talk about, like, it narrows, yeah. And I liked that. I liked that it's not allowed between these times, and panhandlers cannot, anyway, there's quite a few things in the Calgary bylaw that, after reading ours, I felt like I wasn't sure if ours is very broad, but if Calgary's can be so precise, couldn't ours be a little more precise, I guess is my question?
It's a good question. I do not have the answer.
Councillor, when I read that Calgary bylaw and compared it to our Main Street, we literally would have nobody on Main Street. Because they specify the distance
I know.
in an entrance to a
Fantastic.
business, yeah.
That's specified
It's,
here
Jeff, do you want to
too. 10
comment
meters.
on
Just a banquet
Is
unit.
it
the
10
possibility of amending that to be more specific? Any reason why we left it a little bit broader rather than more specific in application?
It's not just the distance for me, it's like there's more in this one.
Time limits and everything like that.
That's right. Ours does, in 6E, it says within 10 meters of an
Yeah, it does
automated.
speak about it,
It does,
of the bank. And
Exactly,
automated.
exactly.
It speaks of the same
but
thing.
this one
already.
is just a little bit more,
That goes right down to the businesses.
I just felt like I ran it past a couple of the business owners, and they felt like this one was very specific, a little more specific, and they liked it. So I just wondered.
Yeah, it's your bylaw, so if you want
Yeah.
things added before another reading, no problem.
Okay, well, that's all right.
So
Let's
can I
talk
just
about
ask,
it.
in the city of Calgary, have they been challenged on their bylaw at all?
See, I don't know these
I
details.
wondered if they were,
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I feel like they would have had a legal team putting it forward.
especially if it's been 2015, if they've
2015.
been challenged, then they'd have to change it.
I would
right?
think
It
so.
Probably hasn't changed, so, yeah.
All right, so Councillor Barnes.
Just a comment, I do like the fact that our penalties are a little stiffer, and I don't think we're gonna get Subway sandwiches given out at a $250 level, like they were before at a $50 level. That this has got a little more teeth in it, so hopefully this will stand up in the courts.
Councillor Selk.
Maybe this is along with Councillor Brown's thoughts. You throw a point of sale in there, that's every single business in town.
That's right. That's what it says.
Within 10 meters of a point of sale terminal.
Yep.
You wouldn't have any problems.
Yeah.
Point of sale being, it could be a cash machine in a business, right?
Could be a till.
It could be a till,
Yeah.
it could be
Yeah, yeah,
your interact of it, rather.
right.
But it says 10 meters of the entrance.
So it speaks about literally a cash machine, not a cash within a business, a cash machine in a business.
Like an ATM.
It speaks of the ATMs, that's what it
It
talks.
talks about
Talks
pedestrian
about bank,
walkways.
comma, ATM,
Yeah.
that's what it speaks of.
Sidewalk.
But there are ATMs in some businesses too.
At least you've got a policy and a bylaw in place, and unless it goes to court, we don't know where it's going to stand. So
Okay, all right.
And this is a living document, basically, too.
Yes.
I guess my point was is that if you say point of sale machine, that's every single business. We're not allowed to point panhandle in front of any business in town, because they all have point of sale machines.
But that's my point.
Exactly.
All
Sorry,
right.
but.
So is that what you would like to see, Councillor Brown,
would.
added
It would.
in that bylaw? Okay,
There's nothing mentioning any challenges to their bylaw on here that I looked at.
well, I'm sorry,
I said, I just looked up to see if there's any challenges to the Calgary's
No.
bylaw, I haven't found any.
No.
So,
okay.
Well, it hasn't been changed.
The thing
Updated.
is, we do not know from the policing aspect how successful that bylaw is, we do not know.
It's the enforcement of it.
So that's something we could maybe inquire about.
So it says, our panhandling bylaw regulates when, where, and how panhandling can take place. This is for the protection of the public and the panhandlers. Anyway, I just thought it has some interesting things in there that I felt ours might be a little bit missing.
All right, so Council, we don't have to pass second reading at this point, or we can pass second reading and have the revision done, and then pass the third reading at a further meeting. Subsequently. Okay, all right, do you want to put
Sure.
motion forward?
I'll make a motion to forward the second reading.
You already have a
I already did
motion on
that.
second
Yeah.
reading on the table.
Did you?
So do you want to have second reading and then, do you want a
Well, I
motion
have
to?
a question first before we go on and vote on it. I'd like to know if we can't do those revisions and include them in the second reading, or do you want to,
You can do them
I-
afterwards, it makes no
And
difference.
and then it would go into the third reading,
Yeah,
the
it's
final
not
reading?
adopted at
Okay,
this
I'm fine
point.
with that then.
Okay.
Because I do like what Councillor Brown has said. about
Okay.
those.
So, Jeff, just for my information, do you need a motion afterwards to direct you?
Correct.
Okay, so that would be your motion, Councillor Bengry, after we approve this motion.
During
Okay.
administration.
So, all in favor of second reading? Thank you. Councillor Bengry, that's the time
I'll
for
make
your
a
motion.
motion to direct administration to make,
Update.
update or make changes to the present bylaw and bring it back to council for discussion.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much. Good work, Councillor.
Bring this through.
Policy S70, Sunday recreational facility use. As you remember, we have a conundrum. The conundrum was very well stated in the newspaper, in fact, that was released under the name of Bill Creed for the Temple Star, which expresses the fact that we have a bylaw that does not allow Sunday sports, but we have an organization that does have Sunday sport and always have had from day one. So we said that that bylaw is really, from a governance point of view, not good and need to be replaced by a policy. And so we directed administration to do that. So I would like you to look at it and make comments on it. There is one comment I will add, no doubt.
Mayor, under it states right at the very first, it is the policy of the town of Cardston that certain recreational facilities shall remain unstaffed on Sundays. The swimming pool and goes on, shall normally remain closed.
Right.
And I'm suggesting there should be a word change there that will remain closed.
Discussion. Councillor Selk, Councillor Brown.
But the whole intent of this policy was to allow administration to administer it. So I think the wording as it is allows them to administer it.
At their discretion.
Okay, that is as a discretion, but it's also with the input of council.
But
Council will always have an input on this one.
Yeah.
Because if you remember, there was a plebiscite that was done with a good 70% of the population that expressed a definite concern about Sunday sports. You cannot ignore the will of the people. They elected you. And so I think the way it's written, which normally is good in the sense that it allows administration to administer with the input of council.
And that's covered in the last paragraph.
And I believe it is quite well covered. So, in that sense, I feel we're not really quenching or oversight regarding the matter of Sunday sports. And we must respect the will of the people. Councillor Bengry.
I'm going to direct this question directly to Jeff and Jeff, it's going to be a tough one for you to answer. But I'd like you to answer it. Do you feel that this council is putting too much on administration's shoulders and not doing the job that council should be doing? Especially when we're looking at bylaws and policy, because it is the council responsibility to set policy and to set bylaws. It's not your, you can be directed to give us a map of the policy, and then we're to finalize it. Is this not right? Or are we putting too much on administration?
No, that doesn't concern me, and I'll tell you, if there's a concern about the word normally, as I drafted it. The point of using the word normally is in the second paragraph, we talk about exceptions on the baseball and soccer fields.
Right.
So they are closed except for that exception. So the word normally I felt was appropriate. It wasn't really a discretionary word I was going for, that we would be looking at, offering all these discretionary uses on Sunday. The intent was we acknowledge that we have use on Sundays of the ball diamonds, and we wanted to accommodate that in some way. So that was the word there. But no, as far as doing the policy piece, I'm not concerned about that at all.
Essentially is we are not supporting beyond regular work of staff on Sunday, which is the case in the summertime. In the summertime, the watering goes on. And so if they're there and open a building, it's not going to be open a washroom, it's not going to be the end of the world. But it's not to have a staff designated to do that.
I don't like the word normally. I feel pretty strongly about it. I really think that it might be a run-on sentence or paragraph there, but I think that the swimming pool, ice rink, ball diamonds, soccer fields, and football fields will remain closed, so as not to require staff from those facilities to work, with the exception of campground, reunion center, golf course, agri. Then I think that way we know that Jeff and the administration are not going to have people come in, well, you're letting the golf course open, you're letting the agri open.
Okay, hold on a
Those are
second.
not exceptions.
So in that case, we can no longer have the kids water the lawns on Sunday, which I do already. How do you handle that then? If you close it so tight.
I wouldn't say anything in there. I was
If you
talking
close
about
it
the
so
first
tight,
one.
you're tying his hands and making his life miserable.
How's that?
Yeah.
The way you suggest that, Will, you cannot do that. People on a Sunday, if they want to go play on that field, they're going to go play on that field, whether the town tells them to or not. I mean, they're going to go out there. If you say, we will close these on Sundays, are you going to fence off all the ball diamonds, all the football fields? Because they're going to go and play on it. So I like it the way it's written.
Okay. We want to rescind the bylaw because it's unenforceable to create a policy that's not
Exactly.
enforceable.
Yeah.
Like, I don't get what we're doing here.
Exactly. You have to make it so it's workable.
For me, the change here was it was an interesting bylaw because you were trying to govern the people with the bylaw.
Exactly.
So you wanted to penalize residents who use them under the bylaw, essentially. That's what a bylaw would be for. But my feeling when we talked about it, when this was drafted, was the intent was we're trying to avoid staffing on Sunday. So we changed it to a policy on Sunday.
Okay, I get that.
But
Yeah,
again,
that's the
Councillor Barnes, the
intent.
issue with, I understand why you want to be definitive on the closed, but the other thing was, we discussed, we didn't want to be definitive on the ball diamonds being closed, we simply weren't going to staff it.
Yeah,
And we'll make people aware of that. Under policy, we can't staff it, sorry.
okay, I get it.
And it won't be stuck.
But it doesn't close the facility, that was a discussion. Now, ice rink, swimming pool, well, we can lock the door, those are pretty definitively closed. So that's a little easier. It's just those other ones are just really hard to enforce a closure. That's my piece on that.
The essential thing is we will not assign staff to those facilities.
That in effect is what the other bylaw 7 years ago did not say. It's
Right.
basically the same thing, although it's more specific here. But the bylaw said years ago, the mayor was upset about it, so they did not say that we would not assign staff. So I find this to be
Right.
much more
Yeah,
palatable.
because that is exactly the intent.
Yeah.
Is not to have staff working on Sunday on facilities, on those facilities, except for what is already done, which is the watering and those type of things that have to be done.
Just another comment or question. In Canada, they rescinded the Lord's Day Act, right? It's no longer part of Canada. It's not a government bylaw policy.
For sure.
Because I was thinking that this is what's been precipitating all the various communities to make these policies that, to whatever their people want, desire.
If I
Their
understand
community
it
standards.
correctly, they could designate one day of the week where they will not provide facilities like we're not doing here. It could be a Wednesday, it could be a Sunday.
Right.
So a community has that right to designate one day a week,
Okay.
if I understand it correctly.
And ours is Sunday.
So, are there any further discussion? If not, we need a motion to approve that.
I'll make that motion.
That's
Make
the
motion
motion
to
first,
approve.
right?
Don't rescind at this point. You're going to put a motion of approval.
I'll make a motion to approve policy S70, Sunday recreation facility use as written.
Thank you. Any further discussion
Do we need to
regarding?
rescind the?
Not right now, afterwards.
Okay.
We will. You need something in place first. So right now, you're changing from a bylaw to a policy. And remember that the policy, we have a CEO that's still under our direction. Okay?
As I understand it, then a policy would have more teeth in it than the policy. Is that correct?
A bylaw?
This policy, it would be easier to manage than the bylaw. Is that-
The bylaw-
Actual policy is action,
Okay,
how you do it.
The bylaw had no punishment,
yeah.
had no consequence attached, so it was useless.
Okay.
All right, so any other comment before I call the question? All in favor? Thank you. So remember, it's not to open the field on Sunday. It's not the purpose. The purpose is to make sure that we do not hire staff and work staff, town staff, with tax dollar on that day. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yep.
Thank you. So it's hopefully understood. 6C. Now, the rescinding of a bylaw has to be done the same way as when you approve a bylaw. So you cannot do 3 readings at one time. You can do one motion, and I would suggest no more than that today.
Can I make a motion to rescind the bylaw 1621?
1664, I think.
Bylaw 1664.
So,
So 1621?
yes, so how this works is, we have to do a rescinding bylaw so normally your bylaws are rescinded when we adopt a new bylaw. So a lot of times we'll do a new bylaw or amendment and it'll say, when this comes into force, bylaw whatever, the old one, is hereby rescinded. And you adopt that by 3 readings. So when you're not replacing a bylaw, in this case we're just getting rid of one, potentially.
Right.
You write a bylaw, which is 1664, so you would pass first, second, third reading over time on bylaw 1664. And there really isn't a reference to, was it 1621? Is that what you said it was?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's in the text of 1664, but we don't rescind 1621
Okay.
by name. We adopt 1664.
Okay, so we need to make a motion.
So you just pass first reading of bylaw 1664 if you so choose.
Okay.
Okay? So in other words, we're starting the process to rescind the past bylaw, which is, from a governance perspective, a very poor bylaw. Okay, so we have that motion on the table. Questions? All in favor? Thank you. So that's the first, and we will put a second and third at a different meeting. It allows time for people to react to what we're doing. 6D. This is a draft bylaw, 1665, for the creation of a Lee Creek Golf Course Advisory Committee. And this is a draft bylaw. And that draft bylaw is to try to help us create a committee that would be largely staffed with a maximum of about 6 people. 4 being voting members and 2 being from administration and senior executive. So I want you to give me a little bit of feedback.
Just you didn't mention when you said must be members, but they must be current paid members of the golf club, right?
Well, since the dues are done at the end of the session, I don't really know how you...
Oh, that's what it says in here.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand how it works.
We've got some members who are paid their dues.
There's some lifetime members, I know there are.
We have a pretty good feel for, people know if they're going to be a member or not. We're not too concerned there.
Essentially, that is it. Any other reaction? Jeff?
One question I wanted to pose on there, we have 4 members of the golf course. We have a counselor and we have admin support. We have the counselor as a non-voting member. And we weren't sure what your feelings were on that. It doesn't really matter either way. We have it as a non-voting member of the board. If you want to keep it that way, great. It's an easy fix one way or another. Or if you want to leave it where they liaise and they don't vote. That was some of the discussion we were just having internally.
Jeff, in essence, the council person is going to take whatever decision is made from the committee to the council for the final approval anyway, right? So I don't know that that's all that germane to the issue.
Sure.
So, are you okay with having a member of council on that board?
I'm saying it doesn't matter whether they vote or not.
Yeah.
Whether they vote or not, you know.
Agree.
So, do you want it voting or not? So
Well,
let's make that decision.
I'll just mention one other thing. One of the reasons why sometimes you don't have a counselor that can vote is they don't come to the council with a bias.
Yeah.
Right, so if Councillor Drew's on that committee and he comes and says, well, this passed 3-2 and I was one of the 3 and we really like council to support it, he's coming to the table with a bias on that vote,
Where do you
right?
break the tie?
Which isn't an end of the world either, but it is just something to consider.
I kind of appreciated the way it was written, but if you want to change, go ahead.
Like I said, the only concern I had was how do you break the tie?
It fails.
You got 4 voting, and you have 2.
Tie fails.
Tie fails and vote.
What's that?
A tie fails.
A tie fails, right?
Yeah.
This is why it's always best to have an odd number on any committee of voting members, because to avoid that situation, right?
Maybe like the old way of council was that the mayor would break the tie and didn't vote, but maybe the council would
Never was
vote
like this.
and to break the tie, I don't know.
Never was like this, and in GA, the mayor always voted.
Not that I ever found either.
Always voted. Always voted. That has been a little bit of,
I would suggest, Mayor, if it's a really
we get another member.
significant, if it's a really significant thing, then they're going to have to stay there until they reach a decision, until they get a majority.
No hung juries, right?
No.
Yeah.
Either that or they all meet up by the bike rack at 4 o'clock.
Okay, all right, so you satisfied the way it is,
Just,
from what I understand?
I just want to ask one question.
Go ahead.
So with respect to they must be a Lee Creek member, are we eliminating anyone in the community who may have a passion for the golf course and is not a member? You know know what I mean?
Do you want to put, that is my question too, I had a
Like
little
a
bit of
member
a
at large, you
scenario.
mean?
I was exactly
Yeah.
thinking of that, is it possible to add a member that is a member at large with no tie attached to that?
Then that would give it 5.
Without actually having to have a membership.
Right, just a member at large.
I like that idea.
So is it a member at large living in town, or is it a member at large county?
This one facility.
All right. Okay, so would you support to add 1/5 member being a member at large with no tie specifically to the golf course directly? Tied by passion, not by membership. Is that something you could support? Okay, so administration, if you could change that to 5,
What I would maybe recommend is if you wish, do first reading,
and then you would
and
make
then
changes.
we can make the amendment, and you can approve that next meeting, and we can be done with it and pass it.
Okay,
I'll move first.
Councillor, so,
The bylaw 1665.
okay, first reading is there. Questions? Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you very much. All right, well, that was a lot of business on the bylaw and policy. Thank you so much, that is really the work of council. 7A,
Question
there's,
there first.
go ahead.
Councillor Brown and myself are on the review committee. When would this council like us to start reviewing some of those policies and stuff?
Okay, could we ask that under the CEO report?
Sure.
And then you could maybe
Yeah.
ask those questions, give Jeff a little moment to think it over. Thank you. 7A, AUME letter writing campaign. Now here is really an interesting story. The president of AUMA is only following the vote of the municipalities or people representing municipalities at the AUMA, which is to create a more equitable system for funding of policing in towns regarding what it is, especially for the town less than $5,000 that do not incur the cost at this point. Used to until 2004, I believe, at a cost to our town for about $400,000. So that request is not bearing very well for small towns, villages, etc., counties. It's actually a very detrimental request for us. And I don't know that we should support the request the way it's written. First of all, there's a word in the letter that we should endorse that bothers me. When it says it should be fair, it says
More equitable.
that this police funding model is both unfair and unsustainable. Well, I understand the unsustainable, but unfair is the wrong word. That I can call it not equitable, fine, it's not equitable, I agree it's not equitable. But that it is unfair, I don't agree with that. Because how can small municipality bear such a huge cost? $400,000 on less than $3 million of tax revenue. It's a burden for us that we could not bear. That would make it unsustainable for this town. So, unequitable, yeah, I can use that word. They have an idea that is being looked at actually by the Sojan and has to do with that idea of equity based on population and property assessment. That's possibly something we could support.
Mayor, it seems to me like we could simply ignore this request and move on to the next item because there's no benefit for us.
Is that a good thing to ignore, or is that for us to have a little bit more aggressive stand and saying, really, for small towns, it's not a matter of fairness, it's a matter of sustainability and a matter of finding an equitable solution, but never mind the fairness.
The argument could be used that we are already depopulating the rural area. If we continue on that line with taking away the funding from the rural areas, this is exactly what happened with education maybe 25 years ago, where the province finally said the poorer, smaller school divisions cannot be funded by local taxation. So I see no difference with this one. If we don't ignore it, at least we should argue against it.
Yeah.
Councillor Bengry?
I don't think I have Alzheimer's yet, I might have a touch of it, but I think in 2016, when AUMA voted on this, it come up discussion, and small communities under 5,000 did not accept this.
That's right.
You're quite correct, but the vote went because of the representation of the towns.
Well, the
Over
cities-
5,000,
Yeah.
well, any town over 5,000 was obviously not in favor of the small town having that privilege. Yes.
Seems to me that the intent of this item of business is that they want us to participate in a letter writing campaign. So either ignore their request because we don't want to, or we start a letter writing campaign of our own for all the towns and municipalities under 5,000.
Well,
Well, I like that idea.
See, I do not like that statement, everyone should pay.
Yeah.
well,
Well,
there is
we do,
maybe,
in a
there is
sense, we
maybe
do.
a certain amount where we need to say, but to be unsustainable for small town.
It's based on population and property.
Well, that could make it more equitable, that's what they're looking at. Trust me, from what I heard from the RCMP new boss, it appears that they're working on that right now.
There they are.
Fact for us to tell the truth. Because it's coming. But what we have to make sure is that our voice is heard regarding how much of a negative impact it would have on us. That's the problem.
I think that this dear for the small community. Why would you say no?
You know what? Too late to do it now.
Well, we
When
should do our own letter writing campaign and send it out to the smaller communities because if we can't afford our police. Here we don't pay the bill. Unless we
So,
go to our own police force.
all right, so here's what I would ask. Do you feel comfortable for us sending a letter in disapproval for that plan that is the AUMA?
Like Councillor said, they're asking us to start a letter writing.
But we will not
And I
respond
don't
to
think we
their
should
letter.
support that.
Not that way. We have to do it differently.
I think maybe you could simply state in the letter that actually, no, we don't agree with
The position of the AUMA.
Yeah, you could simply state that we're a municipality under 5,000 and
We don't have the money.
question the sustainability.
Yeah, we believe in equitable, but not
That's right.
in
And
that.
also look at the
question of
rural
fairness.
crime rates have been going up quite steadily.
Well,
because
that's
of
a
that.
problem, you see. What I'm trying to say is that all that money, if all the small municipalities were going to start paying, would go to fund the crime, rural crime. That's what it is
Yeah.
here. It is quite well explained. So my point of view, you don't take from Peter to pay Paul. There has to be a better funding formula. So I need a motion to have administration draft a letter on our behalf.
I'll make that motion to have administration draft a letter to,
Oppose.
yeah, I guess,
Outline our position.
yeah, outline our position as to this.
Policing services, funding. Okay,
Can I ask a clarifying question?
please.
The intent of AUMA was to use their template to send a letter to your MLA.
Right.
Is it the assumption that this letter is addressed to the MLA? Not to AUMA, not to Mr. Morishida, but to
Yeah.
the MLA?
I think we need to start there, and I really think,
Might want to CC it to you, me, but
You can outline it, I think, in the beginning of the letter that as per the
Right.
request, we want to make it known that.
Because the MLA is going to get inundated with this
Right,
template.
letters.
Right,
yeah, no.
Okay, so we're writing the MLA, that's
Yeah.
what this is going to? Okay.
theoretically.
Well, that's-
Thank you.
that's where the rubber hits the road.
Right. Thank you very much. Good. Now, the next one is an
Did you
interesting
vote?
one. We're going to vote. All in favor? Thank you. 7B, too far, too fast, Canada. I really don't know where you want to go with this one. It's regarding cannabis, the cannabis bylaw, and the request for municipalities to reject applications of businesses to come in town.
A recommendation.
Go ahead.
I think this is a good discussion point for the committee as a whole, because we need to have a more fulsome discussion about the whole cannabis bylaw, or the whole cannabis situation in Canada.
But after what we've heard,
Okay,
You know, we had quite
So-
a conversation at the Brown Lee regarding this,
I am sure.
and we have the
that-
information.
and Councillor Brown and Councillor Drew got some direction.
Yeah. Okay, so why don't you share your wisdom at the Council of the Whole and bring us maybe a copy of
March.
what Brownlee,
Mhm.
the Brownlee recommendation is, of how to handle it from a municipality standpoint, legal
Councillor
standpoint.
Brown and Drew, did that legal suggest that she would put her stuff on a PowerPoint presentation and send out to us?
They always kind of do, but did I give you a booklet for it?
They call it their green solution. It's all, I have it on my computer.
They give us their online link.
And if you get to Jeff, you'll be able to access it.
Exactly.
Okay, so make sure that you do that. So that'll give us all the background we need. All right, so 7C, a UMA conference 2018. At the last AUMA conference, where we were in Calgary and did a lot of work the day before, as a planning session, we had some discussion regarding, is that really important for all council members to go there? Or is it more important for all council to have opportunities to go there during that term? And so there were mixed feeling, mixed ideas. The main idea was it's becoming extremely costly, and is that really something we must consider as an item of budget when we plan our budget? Or is it something that allows us to network, to be able to come to understand other municipalities, other functions? So there are different perspective and point of view. So go ahead, Councillor Bengry.
Mayor, This year, as we looked over the agenda for AUMA, that first educational day, we felt as a council there was nothing there
No,
that really
there
pertained to us.
No.
That's why we
topics, and that I think are of importance to all of us, and we go to this one, you go to that one, and we all get to go, and we can get a sense of what's going on, and I think that,
we're talking about.
I see the value of us all going myself.
Okay, if you remember in the past, the reason why we wanted all council to go is because we had a chance to come on in front of ministers
Yep.
and be able to pitch our areas of concern. And we had a direct link, a face-to-face with the ministers, and that was something that was a very useful exercise for us. But at this point, it is no longer the desire of the present government to carry on with that model. So it takes away, it kind of deflates us all a little bit. So that is why the question, should we all be there or not? But let's do a round table and quickly put it to rest, because there is no right or wrong answer to this one. Councillor Colt, how do you feel about it?
I feel it's a good opportunity for us to converse with other towns of our size.
Okay.
About issues that they're dealing with. I would be in favor of going out there. It gives us a chance to kind of decompress throughout the week, the year before, and discuss issues with our own council like we did, or with other towns of our size.
Okay. Councillor Brown?
I agree. I thought it was brilliant having the strategic planning meeting right before. I thought that worked really well because we were already there. It was a location out of Cardston where we wouldn't be bugged, and we were able to just sit down for a whole day and just throw things out on the table. So I think those two worked really well together.
So for you, the fact that we could do the planning at the same time was
I think so.
what
for me.
sold it for you. Okay. Councillor Bengry, you probably have different idea on that.
I do. My concern is when we have a strategic planning meeting away from our area, it puts such a download on our administration to get all of the information up there, make sure that all the information is up there. And if you remember right, one of the administrative staff drove home that night. And so I don't know. To have that strategic planning session before AUMA, it may be good, but it also can be, I don't know.
Why don't we give administration a sense of his feedback on that?
Sure. There are pros and cons, for sure. For me, we've done so much more. Your packets are electronic now, and things are a little different than they used to be. I can access the entire server from remotely now, so that's changed. But to your point, Councillor Bengry, for having Jill be able to come up if we need, or Bart, yes, it is a little bit more difficult if we want that extra staff in the room. So that, I guess that would be the one drawback. It's easier than it was, and man, I can't believe when I say when I started 10 years ago, it's easier than it was because we were carrying boxes and boxes of everything that might come up. And now it is a little bit easier with electronics, but there is that downside for having other staff attend if we need.
Okay.
And
Can
we've
we,
also held it over in the courthouse museum, which would become an ideal situation.
It's just chilly.
Okay, I'm confused. Do you think we should go to AMA or not?
No, we're going to AMA. I'd like,
That's yes for you.
so we're networking.
Councillor Selk?
Yes, I think we should go. It's a good time.
Okay.
Yeah, network and strategic planning, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, so
But
I think-
I haven't finished my comments.
Sorry.
I thought the strategic planning there was fantastic. I really liked that. I really enjoyed being there. The only thing that I felt the same thing, that perhaps Jill should have had an overnighter and then come home in the morning the next day.
Well, she kind of shows it that
Yeah,
way.
But that's up to her.
Call, yeah.
If it was
was
her
her call.
call, that's fine. But I
She
thought.
didn't
it was-
have to do it that way.
No, and that's fine. If it comes to that she needs to, or whoever it is that goes, he's over, fine.
Well, if you remember, I went with her,
Yes, yeah,
right?
yeah, you did.
Okay. All right,
If I can just ask quickly, I've only ever stayed at the Sheraton in Red Deer. I don't know if any of you have some please do not book us in or a couple of those. This one's going to be interesting because it's at the
Okay.
Westerner, and so you don't have a hotel near the venue. Everything is a driving distance. You don't walk between your hotel and the venue this year. Now they're going to be running shuttles, and we'll see how well that works. But it's a little different because we are some distance away. So if there's a preference of let's look at this one, or please don't book us in this one, let me know, because we want to book that probably tomorrow.
okay. All right, so here is the last question regarding that. Would you be in favor of doing a strategic planning the day before? At all start. Okay, so you need to book the venue. Thank you.
So that would be the 25th of September to the 28th then, right?
Something like that. Yeah.
Now, just a comment. I'm going to direct this
Go
to
ahead.
Jeff. When we stayed for the AUMA 2 years ago, Richard and I shelled the whole time. That wasn't a big deal to me. They were right in front of the hotel, so I don't think it's any different.
And I hope not.
Yeah.
It's a new venue.
It's a new
going to
venue,
be
exactly,
tested.
exactly.
You know, we don't know how well
The
it
Westerner is on
will
the
work.
gates right at the bottom of the hill. You come all
Pardon
the way
me?
up- The Westerner is located on the Gates Avenue,
Yeah,
right at the bottom of the hill.
at the south end of town?
No, it's
Or-
about the center of the town.
Is that the,
I thought it was right where Highway 2 headed off, and you went straight in.
so there's no hotel at the west end?
There's a couple hotels, but they're not on the list.
They're not
Let's put it
listed.
that way.
Oh, okay,
I
for
think-
reason, for good reason, eh?
Also, gas
I think it's
there.
the Black Knight, which is the closest and the biggest.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with any of the hotels there.
All right, can we give carte blanche to the administrator to deal with that?
It's quite, it's a nice place.
All right, let's move
All the
on.
expresses are always good.
For training,
It's the Guns N' Roses motel in the west.
Jeff is going to do the FOIP training for us.
Oh, okay. I will be relatively quick, Council, because the material, I won't be redundant of reading it all for you again. As part of your orientation, you need to do a little bit of FOIP, Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy training. All I intend to do is just supplement the 8 slides I had in your packet. So it's pretty straightforward. Oh, I'm not, if I turn it on, I may go live. Hold on 1 second. There we go. So the basic principles of FOIP, and I'm just going to overview and then talk about your role as counselors. FOIP is intended to give the public access. And by default, everything that is manufactured, created, drafted, passed around in a public office is public. And so it also provides low privacy where that is necessary. And it establishes a privacy commissioner, so if there's a complaint. So that's the basic thing. Now, specific to the town, like I said, public records are by default public, unless they fall under exemption categories. So one thing that gets referred to a lot, because it was the mantra, this notion of land, legal, labor, we use it as this quick reference for FOIP, for in camera, but it's not the benchmark anymore. The benchmark is section 16 of the Act. So we look at, I always look at section 16 and say, is there anything in there that says this isn't public? Because by default it is. Okay? So what we did internally, one thing I'll share with you, I have an administrative policy, and I don't have a copy for all of you, I should have uploaded it as well. But we have an access to information policy that's an administrative policy. And so what we did to make it easy for the staff is one of the schedules in there, it's a list of routinely available records. So if it's on this list, people can just have it. Nobody has to come ask me, nobody has to do anything like that. So if you come in and you want an agenda of a council meeting, an annual report, assessment role information, budget, bylaws, cemetery records, committee memberships, development permits, election results, fee schedules, and on and on. That is a readily, routinely available record, and our staff gives that out. Now, we have other schedules where there are other pieces of information which are not routinely available, but if you fill out the information, and Councillor Barnes, you would know this through accessing information for real estate purposes. So you would want assessment information of a client, and as long as they sign it in consent, we release it to you. So we release it with a caveat of consent. And so really that's how we deal with it internally, is trying to make sure that some things are very straightforward, other things just need a little bit of paperwork. The next piece here, and there it went. So exemptions. Exemptions fall under section 16 of, there's actually more sections, 16 through 17, 18, it goes on for a while. Part 2, Division 2. And those involve things like business or economic interest, personal privacy, public safety, law enforcement, intergovernmental relations, confidential or privileged information. So those are things that under the Act you cannot disclose. You don't have discretion to disclose them unless the person giving you the information consents to it. So sometimes that will happen. And then one thing just for your sake, and you read this, but as elected officials you don't have special access to information. And neither do our staff, neither does the town staff. So we've had meetings with the town staff saying, okay, if you are in this position, that doesn't mean you can just go access materials relative to another position. It's not appropriate. You only consume the information necessary for your role. Now in a small organization like ours, there's a ton of overlap. We don't have an accounting department. We don't have a human resources department. It's everybody kind of has a hand in a lot of things. But we've made a point with the staff to say, look, if I've got confidential information for council on the server for the agenda, it doesn't mean everybody needs to go there and read it. So yes, there's in-camera items that I upload for you guys or that I have information. That doesn't mean all my staff, because they're curious, needs to want to read every confidential item on the agenda. It's not necessary. At some point it may become pertinent to their role, but at that point it isn't. So for you and for me, we're not carte blanche because we either work for or elected for the town. And you would go through the exact same process in your role to access information as any other member of the public would. If you came in and said, I want all this information, and I said, sorry, there's an exception to disclosure, you can fill out a formal FOIP application, you can request it formally, I'd probably still deny it, and you can take it up with the province. That's how the process works very quickly, by the way. If it's not routinely available or through our forms, you FOIP it, you've heard that term. And I will try and provide whatever I can under that, but there are things that I can't, and if you don't like that, you can appeal to the province. That's what the commissioner will do, is they will review that. So that's really, really quick, your role as councillors with FOIP. This is going to go, I'm going to click it once, and it's going to go 10 times here. There we go.
What is the fee for access?
It depends. The base fee is $25. That's provincial. But then if, for example, if you came in and said, I would like every piece of correspondence between Jeff Shaw and a councillor for the last 10 years, you're going to pay a lot more than $25 because I'm going to sit down and say, okay, that's probably going to take me 16 hours to gather. There's going to be 1,000 copies made, and here's the costs. So anything that's fairly quick to get, if you can provide it quickly, it's just under the fee. But if it's onerous, then there's a fee involved. What happens is I quote the person, and then they can decide whether they want to either proceed with the quote, or if they think the quote is onerous, they can appeal to the province. That's the option they have. So a lot of times, I have never received a FOIP request from the public. In my time before the CAO, I believe Marion received one. And some of you might remember we were talking with that Blue Earth Environmental, was looking at a wind farm with the school division. And there was a special interest group that wanted to FOIP any correspondence. We literally had one email. That's all we had. They sent in a FOIP request, we printed one email and sent it to them. That's everything. So that's all we've had in all the time I've been here, because generally if you have your routinely available records, you're transparent in how you conduct your business, people aren't really seeking other information because it's out there. You're acting transparently. One other thing that we need to work on as a town, and this is almost every community, is we need to go over everything we use to collect information and decide if we need information. So I'm the FOIP coordinator for the town. I took the training, and I'm one of those parents who's a bit of a pain in the butt when you sign your kids up for stuff. So I'll pick on Councillor Brown. So if I go sign my child up for swim club and she wants my child's Alberta health number, I'm going to say, why? You don't need it. And they always, like minor football wouldn't take my kid's registration because I wouldn't give them the Alberta health number. I really don't care if they had a point. I was just proving the point. Because they're saying, well, if your child gets hurt, how are we going to get him to the hospital? I said, you're going to take him to the hospital and they're going to get treatment. You're not refused treatment at a hospital in this province if you don't have your Alberta health number on your person. They take your name, they take your birth date, and they sort it out. So too many organizations out there collect too much information that they're now responsible for under FOIP that they don't need. And so we've done a few things since I've taken the training, and Jill's looked at a few things to say, okay, for this registration or this registration, do we actually need your SIN number, your Alberta health number, well, we don't. We don't need it. We need you to show us you have a driver's license, even for employment. We collect, historically, almost every piece of information on that person, but we don't need it. We need their SIN number in order to register them as an employee. We don't need to keep one. We don't need to keep a copy. We don't need their birth certificate. We don't need to have all this copies of every piece of ID, which at some point was collected. So it's forcing organizations to step back and say, why are we taking this in the first place? And if we don't have a bona fide need for it, don't take it. And the other thing is we need to do a little better is we need to make people aware that when you provide information to the town, it's now FOIPable. So if you want to come in and you want to write a nasty letter about something, and I ask people, I get these letters actually, not infrequently. They'll write something and I'll say, are you okay with this being public? Well, no. Well, that's what it's going to be. So choose your words carefully. Yeah, let me retool that. You know? And you get a much more moderate letter coming back, and that's great. That's what it should have been in the first place. So we need to make people clear that when you come out and fill out a business license application, when you come fill out a development permit application, that generally no one's going to request it, but it is in fact public domain. I say the same thing with my staff. If you want, and you and your wife want to have a domestic issue over the town email, that's now FOIPable. So don't. You know, take it home. But don't try and, it's a little bit dangerous for us as individuals that work for the town to conduct a lot of our personal affairs using a town computer or using, you know, my office to do that because it's now FOIPable. So you want to keep that stuff to a minimum and do that stuff not in the public sector. The other thing to remember is FOIP applies to the public sector, it does not apply to the private sector, so it's a little bit different. Other than that, that's a really, really quick run through. I gave you a little brochure in your backgrounder, and it's also in your reference materials. It's just a little guide for members of town council. I can always give you, if you want, copies of the act. It's been updated once since this one, so I just print them from the Queen's printer. This just happens to be the last bound one I had. And any questions about that? I am the information coordinator for the town. Not an expert in it, but learning.
Councillor Bengry?
Jeff, I'm on the assessment review board.
Yep.
All that information is very confidential, is it not?
So usually much of that, well,
It depends.
yeah,
Some
that,
land you can request information on, some
yeah. With the assessment review board, it's interesting because tax information is not confidential.
That's right.
So you can come in and look at the assessment of every property in town right now. Anybody
Yeah,
can.
You can ask for the assessment of your friend's house.
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
your
You
neighbor.
sacrifice.
You can do whatever you want.
You sacrifice some privacy along those lines when you become a land and homeowner. You consent that that's public information. So we will get it tax time. Neighbor A will come in and say, because tax is numerical down the street actually. So they'll say, well, I'm roll number whatever. Oh, here's me. And then they can look at the address and assessment of everybody down the street. Because they want to see that their home is being valued
Their value
comparable
is
to the neighbors.
properly.
Or they might have 6 homes that they think are really comparable and they want to look at those, right?
Yeah, very.
So no
Nothing
tax
wrong with
assessment information is not by its nature private.
that. No, it's not.
It is routinely available, we would call it. Anybody can come in right now, you can go downstairs and we can give you that. We do not give the contact information. So here's a tricky one for our staff a lot, and we refer them to realtors, because what happens is they come in and say, hey, there's a house for sale at this address. Who owns that? How do I get a hold of them? Well, we can't say.
Can't do that.
So if it's listed with the realtor, call the realtor. Or we'll come in and they'll say, there's an empty lot on this address. I'd like to look at what that's worth. Who owns it? Yeah, we can't tell you that. But a realtor can tell you that, because they're not public sector. They're private sector. And they have access to that information. So we refer to realtors a lot when we get asked about who owns a certain piece of property.
And I do get those phone calls.
Yep, I'm sure you do,
The
because
realtor has to also be very careful.
Okay,
so that's just a real quick rundown as part of your orientation.
thank you so
Thank you.
much. It's always a good thing to refer to that. Thanks. 7E, letter to citizens. If you remember, we asked administration to redraft the letter a little bit, and I see the changes have been made. So if you want to approve it, or if you have further comments.
I thought it was a very good effort.
Okay, all right, so it's good to go. So we need a motion to approve it, Mr.
I'll
Bengry.
make a motion to approve the letter to the citizens regarding flag sales.
Of course. Thank you. All in favor? Thank you so much, Jeff, for all the effort you put throughout. Yes. All right, so now we have to work 7F, the per diems. Councillor Vance, you wanted to talk about that.
Yeah. Just so you're aware, for the committees that I'm on, the one committee, the Chinook, or the library board, by default, I'm also a member of the Chinook Arch Regional Library Board. And so, also they wanted me to be on their finance committee. The finance committee meets 4 times a year, so every quarter. The Chinook Arch meets 3 times a year, so every 4 months. And I have to do a lot of travel, and those meetings are long. I'm usually 4 to 5 hours every board meeting, and the finance meeting is usually about the same, because there's a lot of stuff. And so what I'm asking, I'm not asking for any per diem on the Chinook Arch, because I go, I get my mileage, but it's no cost to the town. They pay my mileage. They pay my mileage when I go to the finance committee, but it is an extra meeting, it's another 4 hours. I spend between 5 and 6 hours to go to the Alberta Southwest meeting, which is every month, first Wednesday, and I don't get per diem for that. But I feel, because of that extra finance meeting, that I should get a per diem on that. No mileage, just the per diem for that meeting. And then there are other things, because I'm on the finance committee, there's a lot more responsibility, and they've asked me to attend 2 conferences. One of them's in Jasper, which is coming up on April 26th to 28th, which means I'll have 2 other travel days. This is 5 days. They're paying for, I made sure that they're paying for my hotel. I'm not asking for the town to pay for that, because that's pretty costly to stay at the Jasper Lodge, right? But I feel it's only appropriate that I do get a per diem for my time there. And I don't have a problem with knocking off one of those travel days, but I feel that I should get a per diem for those days. That would be either the travel day before or travel day after. They're paying for my hotel up there and all my meals. And so there's quite a considerable cost saving to the town. It's well over $1,000 that I'll be saving the town on that.
Councillor Vance, can I stop you for a second?
Sure, yeah.
And maybe you can help me with clarification of the appointment to that finance committee.
Mhm.
Because for me to be appointed to the executive of South Grove,
I'm getting to
I
that
would
too.
not do it until you
I was
approve
getting to
it,
that.
right?
If
And
I
So how
want
does it go?
permission, I want permission to be on that finance committee. Boyd Curl is the chairman of that, and he felt that it was important that we have a representative from our town council there. There are, I think, 9 other communities that are involved, they're all councillors that have been approved by their councils, and they all get paid per diems, but the board pays for some of them for their travel time, others, the councils pay both per diems
Yeah.
and the travel. And so I'm requesting that I be allowed to be on that finance committee. I've attended one meeting. I was really pleased to go because I've been on the board, the library board for, 17 years, and then I was appointed to the library board as a council member. I didn't understand the workings of the Chinook, but now, being on this finance committee, I see they're handling quite a big budget, $3 million a year. And I'm finding it very enlightening for me as a councilor there and involved in that. I have a say in what's going on, what's being spent and how it should be spent. And I feel that's a very valuable thing to our town for me to be involved in that. And so that's part of the budgetary process, plus the regular spending. I'm involved in approving their expenditures each time, and so I feel that's a valuable service for me to be involved in that. But it does also, as a committee member, they require that we attend these conferences because there are things at these conferences that are involved in the financing and everything at the provincial level.
Okay, so here is my first train of thought on this one. Is the policy, the remuneration policy for council, did you check it?
Yeah, I looked it over.
And where does that fit in within that? If you are assigned within your committee to a subcommittee or to something, what does it talk about that? It's like being on an executive. If you are on a finance committee, it's almost part of an executive position. So if I compare it to South Grove as an executive position, I considered it as part of my duty of that committee. Therefore, I do not claim any per diem for those extra works or conferences which are coming up. I don't claim anything for that. The only thing I claim is travel expenses, which you approved. So I'm trying to see how different is it, right, from that
I guess it's my
perspective.
commitment
This is
to,
what I'm trying to understand, because same commitment here, so.
well, I have a heavy load now. I've got,
But do you want that load? That's a
well, I
question.
think that I should be
That's a
involved in
question.
that.
That's why we have to decide if you want to be approved to it or not. Because if the load is so heavy and takes you away from your work, etc.,
It's not
is that
doing
something
that,
that
because
you
they're always
should do?
evenings.
Right?
You know.
Mayor, maybe it would help us if we had a break and ask the administration if they would pull up policy R/8-3. And I think that's the policy we discussed. I don't know
No, that's okay
Available.
if we have it all.
But I think that covers what you're asking for, Councillor.
Which one?
Policy number R/8-3. I don't know if you can pull it up.
I'm just looking under the town policy for remuneration policy.
This is a remuneration policy for mayor, council, and
Councillor.
others.
Yeah, that's a latest policy. we have.
Yeah. Have you got that there, Shem?
It seems to me, can you,
R-8-4.
can you tell me, there was different item that Councillor Bond talks about. Jeff, is it not in that policy something that if the meeting is over 4 hours, that there will be paid at a different level?
Half-day per diem for meetings from 1 to 4 hours in length.
Right, and so if it's
And so full
beyond,
day is 4 to 8.
yeah, so
Where
that
mine
is,
comes into play is,
that
it's an
is-
hour travel there and an hour travel home, and if I have a 3-hour meeting, or it might go even more. And these meetings that I do, especially with South Grove, they're not always in the same place. I could be in, or not South Grove, but Southwest. I could be in Nanton or Pincher Creek or Fort McLeod or Claresholm, they're all over the map, right? So,
but
Per diem
it's,
will consider travel time to and from the meeting.
will consider, meaning it's part of.
Correct.
Yes, that's what I remember being, so I'm glad we looked at that, because Councillor Edmonds is the one who wanted that particular policy to be changed because of his travel time. And so that's what it was. The travel time was included within your full time. For me, for example, South Grove sometimes is meeting 2 or 3 hours. 1 hour going to Lethbridge, 1 hour coming back, 2 hours already. 2 hours meeting or 3 hours meeting. And so it is exactly within that policy that you claim your remuneration for that. That is where it is. So that covers your Southwest meeting. So if altogether between your travel and your time at that meeting, you're over 4 hours, you claim a full day per diem. That is what it is, correct?
It's right behind it. Can you bring it so you can actually read it?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, my old eyes.
There you go.
Thank you.
You were right there, Shem. Yeah, scroll back up. You were there. Right there.
Okay, so under A, per diems would also consider travel time to and from the meeting. Okay, so that it is inclusive of the time frame. So this is where you have 2 hours travel plus your meeting. If it's over 4 hours, then you know how to claim according to that
but
policy.
if it's 4 hours or under, it's still a half a day, right?
It's a half a day.
Right, that's all I need to know on that.
Okay, so now for the next item, so that's all for your
Southwest, yeah.
thing. So as for the next one, what council has to decide is on your behalf, is that the wish of council to have Councillor Barnes on the finance committee for the Chinook Arch, which would include 4 meetings a year, here or away from here?
They're in Lethbridge.
In Lethbridge, 4 meetings a year, so, and 2 conferences a year, mandatory.
Now, the one conference in Jasper, I would not be going every time. They're sending 9 of us to that one. And I only went once when I was
I
on the
remember
board
you
before,
going there.
okay?
Mhm.
But I felt really kind of awkward getting the travel time, or not the travel time, but the mileage was almost as much as my per diems on that one. And so I've asked the Chinook if they would pay my mileage. And so I agreed, they agreed with me that they would pay my mileage and my hotel and my food and everything. So it would just be the per diem.
So for the conference, you have per diem, so how many per diems are we talking about?
Well, there's 5 days with the travel time, but I'm just saying I wouldn't charge for the 5th day. I just charge for the 4.
Okay, so it's becoming an onerous thing to be on the subcommittee
Yeah.
for a small town.
Yeah, so I just told them I'll go once in my term, but I'm not going to be going there every time, right?
Okay, so,
And then there's the Southern Alberta Library Conference, which is, that one's in, that's a 3-day. I told them I'd only go 2. They're going to put me up in a motel, plus pay my mileage.
but there again, it's another 2 per diem.
Yeah.
So we talking
So,
for a
and
subcommittee a lot
I'm
of
okay
money.
with not getting one for that one. But
Okay. All right, so here is the thing. It's 7 days, and I don't really know how much it will bring to the town, so
like
Councillor
you said, I
Barnesfield,
wouldn't
it
be
is
going
something.
to the Jasper one every time.
So it's a subcommittee of a committee is assigned to. And so here is where we have to decide how much expense can we have for one subcommittee that does not directly impact the town.
The only concern is the Chinook Foundation, or Chinook Library is requisitioning.
Which it always goes up no matter which way.
Yeah, but I think it's nice to have input on that requisition, you know.
Well,
on the increase.
I have a comment on that requisition. If you recall, the first year
We
on
told them to
council,
bring it down.
I was the one who found all the money. We were short $37,000, and I found it all. And so I feel that, you know, I was kind of keen eyes with looking at that stuff, and I'm not afraid to mention and say, hey, guys, we don't need that. If that's something you want, prove to me that you need it too. So anyways, so I feel like that's
Okay,
something that I
so
would,
we're talking really, truly 7 per diem, and then you're talking travel for your regular finance committee.
no,
What are we
they're
talking
paying my travel.
So we're-
I requested they pay my travel.
We're talking about this future.
That's just the per diem for that.
Okay,
And that's
so
4 times a year for that.
All right,
This is
so-
only going to be one conference in
so
Jasper.
let's try to figure out the whole thing. You have 4 meetings a year
Mhm.
for your finance committee,
Yes.
where you have to be paid per diem.
Mhm.
It's in Lethbridge.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it may be a half day, it may be full day, depending on how long the meeting goes. I try to get it done as quick as possible. I don't like to
Okay,
sit around.
and then
That's
what
not
you
fun.
want is one conference, and one conference for each thing, so it's the other 7 day per diem.
Say that again?
You have one conference for the Chinook Couch. in
Yeah, that's 2
Jasper,
days.
And then you have.
The other is a
the other-
5-day conference, but
So you have
I'm
7
only
days,
going to bill for 4 days of it.
you have 4 days,
So it's $1,700. That's what we're talking about here.
okay, so up to you, council, to make a decision. My fear is that if we all serve on subcommittee and end up with a high amount of per diem, which we need to justify sooner or later. And so that is my little bit of concern.
You know, a
So it's
couple
up
weeks
to you.
ago, Mayor,
We can, a couple of weeks ago, go ahead.
a couple weeks ago, you said, I think it's a good thing that you get involved in these committees.
It
I
is
took
a
that.
good thing, but we also have to look at the reality, right? I think any executive position for a town, it's a good thing, it's eyes that are there. The thing is always how much money we want to put under one committee.
Okay, I'll
So
leave that with you.
up to you to decide, council. I can't make the decision, so it's up to you to make it. Councillor Cole, let's go.
Oh, tough one. If
That's a
Councillor-
tough one.
If Councillor Barnes is only going one time in his term, I can see some value in that. Anytime we can see what's going on in the outside world,
Not a bad
we're
thing.
running things here to see if we do a bit differently.
Correct.
One time in the term, I have no problem with that.
Okay. Councillor Brown?
$1,700 is a lot of taxpayer money for 7 days, when we're getting mileage on top of that, which isn't coming from us, which is coming from, that's my understanding.
That's coming from requisition regardless.
Exactly, but that's not our
I
taxpayer
do what I
money.
could to reduce the costs.
Absolutely, I understand. Yeah.
The thing is not even the money, is what's a benefit to the town? If
Are
we
you
see-
saying there isn't
if
a
we see-
benefit?
Well, it's maybe not directly there, it's indirectly through the requisitioning process. That's where the financial aspect comes from. But which we always have told them when we were not satisfied with the requisition, we always made it clear. Councillor Bengry.
Mayor, I think you said it when you said it's not the money, but it's the benefit to the community. And if Councillor Barnes goes to these meetings and he has input on there of what's happening with the financial situation with that library board or whatever, and he has strong financial representation there, it's no different than me going to the Chinook Foundation and saying, hey, we're not going to tolerate a 4% increase in our requisition. We can only stand a 2% or a 1%. And so the voice has to be there, and I think that's beneficial to this community. But if we make a habit of going to everything that goes on, then we need to make policy, direct policy in that regard. But a one-time situation, I don't think that's out of place.
Councillor Selk.
Can I ask a question?
Please, go ahead.
Councillor Barnes, isn't this library one of the busiest libraries in the Chinook branch?
Yes,
Yes, it is.
it is.
So where do we place it? Second, third? Somewhere?
Probably second.
So there's some value in terms of you going because you're representing second busiest.
Yeah.
Okay, I gotta ask another question. I know this is gonna be listed. You said that Lloyd Curl is the chairman?
He's the chairman of the finance committee.
And he's representing you?
He's just representing the Chinook Arch as an appointee.
Okay.
He was
Member Mark.
the council, county council rep, but then he didn't get reelected. But he is a tremendous financial guy, tremendous.
So, yes, is he going?
Yes, he's,
So are you carpooling or sharing rides?
pardon me?
You sharing rides up or?
We have to talk about that. I have no problem taking it with me.
Well, regardless, I think there is some value in terms of our participation because of how busy our library is.
Yeah.
So can I seek clarification? Too?
Sure, go
So
ahead.
are you seeking approval for participants for the conference, for another conference?
For the
For 4
position.
times a year that you
Yeah.
go and then 3 times a year together? So
Good time of year.
all of those?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right, that's about 11:30 and we're looking at. Peter. Councillor.
I worry about setting a precedent, but I think I would support it.
All right, so Councillor, you have support of council from what I can see.
Okay.
So we need a motion to approve Councillor Barnes' appointment to the Finance Committee of the Chinook Arch and associated per diems for the work on that committee. Councillor Bengry.
Also moved just to what you said.
Oh. I'm so sorry.
So not your ear.
I'll make a motion that we accept Councillor Barnes on the financial committee for Chinook Arch appointment, and also we pay the per diems as requested.
Associated with
Yeah,
that work.
associated with the work on that committee.
Okay, within the parameters that you said.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so all in favor? Thank you. Councillor, you can vote for yourself, you know.
All black.
No.
Okay.
The reason why we need to have those discussions is because we always have to refer to a policy that we have.
No, I
It is,
appreciate that.
it
It's
is
important.
what we have and what we agreed upon, but this fits a little bit outside the policy, so it needs to be discussed. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, and thank you so much for accepting that position. It's a big responsibility. I hope you're not feeling your plate too much.
No, I'm fine.
All right, so under FG, Chinook Foundation, who wanted to talk about that one?
Letter right there in front of the mayor on the side.
Oh, yes,
The official
Yeah.
opening on February the
Invitation.
20th, yeah.
and the minister will be there. It is sort of a closed opening because we just need
Yeah.
to control the.
I will go to that.
You're not going to Winnipeg at that date?
No, that is something else that is changing.
Okay. But we
Okay.
would love to have the mayors, Reeves, and all elected officials that can be there. I think it's important
Are they going to give us a tour?
Yes, we will
Perfect.
get a tour.
All right, that's very good, and I'm very happy to know that this facility is opening in our large community in southern Alberta.
If I can add, this is one of 4 new facilities in the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years that's been approved. And also the changes that have been made have been directly responsible to the CAO and to the board. We've asked for changes in room sizes and access and colors and everything else, and the minister and the government has said, yes, let's do it.
Essentially, what I really appreciate regarding the building and of Diamond Willow Lodge is that you managed to get a very sizable grant, which allowed for requisition not to go up. And that was probably the most brilliant thing that happened there. So thank you so much. Financial report on the 8th. You have it. If you have questions, please go ahead and ask Jeff for clarification. If there are none, we will ask Jeff to have it filed for information. Thank you. On the 9th, committee and other reports, you will see that our CAO has done quite a job regarding that to cover the 2 months of his busyness. And busy he was, as you can notice through that report. If you want to know regarding the call with Minister Hoffman, definitely the funding is not there. What we had for discussion was, how is that every time there is something happening, we have to find it through the newspaper and have not received a courtesy call to let us know? Wow. There was really not too much of an answer to that one, but we let them know that it's a little difficult for us to know if the information that is provided in the newspaper is correct, accurate or not. In that case, it was half accurate from her comment. She said, the hospital is not off the radar. And I thought, well, that's good. But it is not on the radar. So it is just at the limit.
It's your political answer, Mayor.
Of course it is. So what we were concerned about was that all the documentation that had been put in place to move to the stage of a business case, which is a stage just before the Treasury Board, and infrastructure and Treasury. What we wanted to know is what was going to happen to those supporting documents that are now some 10 years in age and do not reflect the state of health issues that we are dealing with in our town, as the fentanyl crisis and the Suboxone clinic and all that stuff. And all that was not taken in consideration, the impact on the mental health support for this community. So all that, there were three documents that had been created in support of our business case. Those documents are in need of review regarding the structural soundness of the hospital, regarding the needs assessment, and regarding the future viability of that structure. So she suggested that we work with Alberta Health Service, and that is what Jeff is talking about when he said to talk with the South Zone coordinator. Jeff, was his name John Switzer? John Switzer. And he's based in Lethbridge. So we know the man, we worked with him before. So Jeff is going to be busy doing that, and in future report we'll have hopefully a bit more answers regarding that. The other issue we had, we brought up to the attention of the minister, is the issue that we have when there was a Waterton fire. The patient that had lung issues had to be taken out of the whole hospital and be housed in a different hospital because we could not stop the smoke from coming in the hospital because we do not have a house recycling system. So that was...
That's an employee issue as well. My wife had to work through all that stuff.
Right. So there are various issues that we made her quite aware of all those and made her aware of the age and their review needed. She acknowledges that. And so we will work with the South Zone coordinator for Alberta Health Services and see where we go from there. We asked her if it was time for the political to become a little bit more aggressive. She says, start to work with Alberta Health and then decide what you have to do.
Well, she made aware that we're also several hours of the week, we don't have any ambulance coverage. Because they time out, we have nobody to take the ambulance, we wait for somebody to come from Pincher Creek to get our sick people. There's a lot of issues that they need to deal with that they're not being dealt with.
Yeah,
right
this
now.
is an Alberta Emergency Service
So it might be
coordination.
time to go political, public with it. I mean,
Give us a chance to work with Alberta Health. Jeff has said he will contact him, and we will do that. And she wants to stay in touch. She even doesn't mind having another conference call in months to come. So she's not blocking us off. That is becoming a little bit more of a working relation. We'll see where we go from there. But we're not letting it die, okay? So that's the update on that one. Are there any questions? Jeff, the question I have possibly is regarding the outfall lines. Do we have any more sense of the desire of who is going to take the responsibility for it, or is that part of your meeting tomorrow?
yeah, we're meeting tomorrow.
So, okay.
Jeff, you got a sense from the windmill group, have they got anybody in place locally? That was one of the concerns about hiring them, was that we wanted to ensure that they were hiring local people.
Sure. Actually, some offers went out today. Greg from Windmill was down last week. He and I actually had an interview with 3 different individuals. It looks like everything should be in place even by close to the end of the week. People should start getting their phone calls. And how it's working is trying to put the superintendent in place first.
Right.
And then he already has this group of people that want to come back.
Is this
and-
Greg Adams?
Yes. And that's not done yet, but yes. So the superintendent will get in place, and then the superintendent will get a budget to fill up, to use up for his staff.
Right.
And so yeah, where you should be just a couple days.
Good.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
that's, we're getting there.
Sorry, Jeff, and so then, once the superintendent, whoever that
Yeah.
is, gets hired for that position, then in fact, they will be hiring our students or whatever from this community, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank
From
you.
my understanding, most everyone that has been there in years past is coming, or wants to come back. A lot of them have called me, just want to know what the story is, where things are at, what they should expect. If they should drop off a resume, what they should do, so.
But they will open it up for.
But if there's spaces that they still need to fill, yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
Councillor Bengry.
Jeff, on top of their purchasing power,
Mhm.
do we still use A, M, D, and C?
We never use them for
No,
golf course
we
stuff,
never-
from my
we
understanding.
never
But if we had to,
I'd have to look, I don't know.
I think they have that component in there,
Yeah, I just don't know.
and I think it'd be to our advantage.
Well, could administration look into it?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Now, Jeff, just wanted to ask you, your public works.
Yep.
So if I understand, you're going to seek 2 new positions?
Well, when Wade went
The
to the
mechanic?
water position, we didn't have a replacement yet,
That's
we're waiting
right.
to get closer to
Okay.
spring, because this is the time that we can swing without, we can have one less guy that can go. We have Leonard driving truck, we have Robert driving truck, Brandon can drive truck, so we can fill in the winter with less.
Okay.
So the Wade's position, so public works general position will be advertised soon, and then the mechanic position shortly after that.
Okay, all right, so those are full-time positions? Okay, so there is something else that I found very interesting in your document, is regarding the renewable. I'm kind of interested to know the position that we have. Kevin Phillips has written an application. It was accepted. We are now asked to provide a further full scope of the project.
Yep.
The issue still is between the federal and the provincial regarding the non-compatible legislation. Are we still dealing with that misery?
Yes, we are. Yeah, so so short story on this. We're trying to get in front of municipal affairs. It looks like we're gonna have an audience there next week, potentially on the phone, to help us navigate. We can't get an audience with energy because they're doing their policy review, which is good. It just doesn't accommodate what we're after, so we really have had a hard time. You and I met with
Yeah.
energy at the time, and they kept saying, well, wait till our policy work is done and see how it helps. But we know it won't solve the problem. So we're trying to work with municipal affairs to see if they can help get us more of an audience. So that's still something to deal with for sure.
All right, so but the meeting is set up.
Municipal affairs, I need to check, it is, that's coming up very soon.
Well,
here. I just
that's
don't
what I
remember the date.
wanted. I wondered
Yeah.
if we were moving in the right direction
Yeah.
there. Okay, thanks. Besides that, I think we are doing great. The exciting thing for you is that possibility of professional development that you have with Josh Koch
It's next
regarding
Tuesday,
the
so it's
review
fall-
of
it's happening.
a town not too
Yeah.
far from here,
Yeah.
and which asked for a review, was not obligated to a review, something similar to our case.
Correct.
So I think for you to take that on as a professional development, kudos.
Yeah, should be good.
And to
Forward
be taken by a guru like Josh Koch speaks
Yeah.
highly of you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so next Tuesday and Wednesday, I'll be going to work with George on a governance audit in the town. So it
Thank
should
you.
be neat.
That's really a wonderful, wonderful thing. And for you to decide is better than another conference you have is great.
Mayor, doesn't Minister Hoffman live in Lethbridge?
No.
No, she doesn't.
No, it's, you're talking of Mayor Phillips, of Deputy.
Chairman Phillips.
Because I was gonna say, if she lived in Lethbridge, I'd like to maybe request a meeting with her on her own.
You know what, we had the chance to meet with her face-to-face, but it was in Edmonton. And Jeff and I did not feel that spending so much money at that time was the right thing to do. So we asked for a conference call. So that's the way we did. And she had her people with her, and we were there, so that was good. Okay? Anything else? Let's break. Okay. Thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much.
I thought we'd be done right about now, we won't. I got a little vegetable tray, I'll just put it out on the table. This is a snack for tonight. There's cheese and pepperoni sticks in the fridge.
Okay, maybe if we can take 15-minute recess and...
Councillor Barnes, if you'd like to...
Thank you.
It's got your name on it, so I knew who it was.